It's time for the very first Big Boy Sanders Home Brewing update. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's time for me to do my very first update on what I've been doing since I started the channel. So I'm going to go through each one of these brews one by one. All of these are finished except this one in the back here. So we're going to talk about this one last and kind of tell you what it's all about. So I've kind of really covered like a big majority of like what you can do with mead here. There are more things that you can do with it, but this is just what I've done so far. So let's start with this one in the back right here. This is kind of like a classic mead. I made it as a sack mead, which means that it was really high in sugar content to begin with. It's been in the fridge, so it's a little frosty on the outside. It's really cold. So sack meads. Sack meads are meads that start off really high in sugar content, so that means that they're really high in alcohol. So this one right here is about 18% alcohol by volume. It's a traditional mead, just honey, water, and yeast, but I've spiced it. So I spiced it at the very end. It's got chai spices, cinnamon, nutmeg, stuff like that. So this is kind of like a really nice fall mead, semi-sweet, you know, and the herbs and the spices really kind of balance out the sweetness on here. So this is a really, really nice one that I'm saving for either like to give away to a friend or maybe for Thanksgiving. So this is that's what that one is. I really like this one. Let's stick with the meads first, and then we can talk about these two right over here, which are not mead. This is a beer and this is a wine. Going on to the next one. This here is what I'm drinking at the moment. This is a fortified version of the Viking's Blood mead. So you can see that it's a little lighter in color. More of like an amber, kind of like a brandy color right here. This is 16% alcohol by volume. The Viking's Blood that I made turned out to be somewhere more around like 12 to 11%. And then I separated off a small batch of that original Viking's Blood, and I added more honey to it. So as I was going, I was step feeding that mead. So this is the third installment of the step feeding. So you have more of the tannic values in this. Got more of a mouth pucker, but it's still sweet. It's more dry than sweet, but I did add a little bit more honey at the end, and I pasteurized it, so it killed off all the yeast, so it wouldn't start up another fermentation. But this one is actually my favorite out of all of these right here. So I think I'm going to be making this far into the future because I really like how it turned out. Moving on. One more drink of the Viking's Blood. So good. Let's talk about this clear boy right here. This was an experiment that turned out really, really well. You wouldn't tell by the look of it, but this is a bochet. This is a banana cinnamon bochet that I made. Bochet means that you caramelize the honey, so it darkens the color of the honey. And the honey that I did use was really light in color, so you can see it's got more of like a dark gold color to it, more of like a dark straw, like a darker straw color to it. I really think that it cleared out more and really kind of fermented most of the unfermentable sugars because I did add banana to it. And as it stands, banana apparently is a really good yeast nutrient, and it just ate through the fermentable sugars in this. I think this one ended in like 10 days. It was insane. I've never seen a mead finish that quickly before. And I think this started somewhere around 1.12 original gravity, which is kind of high in sugars. So I was really surprised to see how quickly this one fermented out. And it took about a week for it to clear out like it did, but it's a nice clear color. It's got a butteriness, and it's got like this kind of like, I wouldn't want to say imitation banana taste, but it's got a banana note to it. The cinnamon didn't really come through, which the next time I make this one, I'll probably have to up the cinnamon or use actual cinnamon sticks and put them in there in the secondary fermentation or the conditioning, just to kind of get that nice cinnamon kick to it. But this one goes, I would say, would kind of go with the spiced meads right here. It's kind of like a spiced bochet, but you know, I don't really get as much cinnamon on there as I wanted to. But as it stands for an experiment, this turned out really well, and I was super excited about it. Next, this is the most recent finished brew that I have going on. I just released the update video yesterday on this one. This is the braggot that I was going for. Very first time making a braggot. It's a combination of my brown ale recipe with my traditional mead recipe. So it turned out really well. It's not as dark as the, well, I mean, in the bottle it's as dark as the brown ale, but when you pour it in the glass, it's like a nice kind of burnt umber color. Whereas with the brown ale, it was just kind of like it was thick. So you didn't get the brownness because it was so thick, but it was delicious. This has chocolatey, malty flavors with some fruit esters that were activated by the yeast starter that I got. And I think I did add rosemary and dill to this. So this is kind of like a Groot style Baltic porter mixed with a mead recipe to make this braggot. And I do think I called this Thor's braggot, if you can see it right there, my custom label. Before we get on to our last mead here, I want to talk about just these two things right here. Let's start with the wine. This was an experiment as well. I had never made a wine before, and I don't have access to wine grapes. So what I did was I used 32 ounces of really nice grape juice with 32 ounces of very nice cherry juice, and I crushed up the stems and the skins of red grapes that I bought at the store, and I fermented this with 18% wine yeast. So this is really high in alcohol. I'd want to say, if I can remember off the top of my head, this is somewhere between 15 to 16%. And this is the oldest bottle that I have of the wine because I drank it all already because it's absolutely delicious. I mean, you have, I say it's better than Stella. So if it were up to me, I would rather make my own wine than buy it, unless I want something really, really nice. So at that point, I would just go for a $30, $40 bottle of wine. But this right here, I would price it like, if I was to sell it, which is illegal, so I won't. If I was to sell it, it would be like $10, $12 bottle of wine. Not too bad. Cherry jam flavors on it. Got a really nice dry finish. With some fruity esters, and kind of like when I say fruity, I say like more like mango and papaya. So it's a really nice dry wine that's got some sweet character notes to it, but it's not sweet in and of itself. And of the last of the non-meads, we have my pale ale, which I started about a week ago. Actually, more like 7 days ago. This is still, it's still conditioning in the bottle. By that I mean that it's still carbonating. So I stopped this at 1.02 and then I bottled it. So I'm letting it sit for 5 days and letting it carbonate, and then I'm going to put them all in the fridge. I did try one yesterday to see how the carbonation was going, and it's about halfway there. It's got some really interesting like orange notes to it. Orange, you get that nice kind of like hay farmhouse character because I did use the Saison yeast for this, and I love Saisons. I don't think I hopped it as much as I probably should have, because I do get more of those kind of fruity notes on the front end, and I kind of need that to be balanced out by the bitter hop character. So the next time I make this, I'm going to have to up the hops on that and probably turn it more into like an IPA. But as beer goes, I made a brown ale, and I wanted to make more of like a lighter beer, so that's kind of like what this is. So not mad at this, but next time I take a shot at it, I'm going to have to, try some different stuff here. One more sip. I'll put that off to the side and talk about our little big boy right here. This, let me try to pronounce this correctly. This right here is what we call a Cappisk-Smell mead, which means that it's more or less a traditional mead recipe, but you add peppers to it to kind of give it a spicy note at the end. More of like a bitter, sharp, spicy note. So in here, I've got 1:1. Well, if you think about water, so I got about, this is 94 ounces, so I got about 1.5 pounds of honey in here, and then I filled up to the rim right here with water, and then I put some raisins, like a raisin tea in there, and I added the raisins in, and then I crushed up some dried peppers, and I put them at the top, and they're just sitting there. This has been going for about 5 days now, and it's still going pretty strong. So I'm not going to be doing a video on this because it's a small batch mead, and I just kind of wanted to try it out, but I wanted to include it in the update video on just what I've been doing overall, just so I have it on record that this is what I did. Let's take a smell of the airlock real quick. So kind of like that, natural smell that you get from the top of your airlock, but there is something a little different. I think the smell is just a little more acidic because you have the peppers in there. And I'm really interested to see how that turns out, because the very first mead I ever made was a Cappisk-Smell. And I didn't know what that was at the time. I just thought, this might taste good. I did ancho chilies and the chilies that I have in here. So this time I'm just doing the long kind of like dried cayenne peppers, because I think the anchos didn't really add anything at the beginning last time, so I'm not going to use them this time. But that's pretty much what I've been doing in my spare time. COVID has really kind of like put a damper on my bartending, so right now I'm really focusing on my brewing and cracking, writing down my recipes and trying to get ones that I really like and ones that really work. And I think here I got some really good recipes. Most of them need to be refined a little more, but some of them I'm really quite happy with. So that's it for the video today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you liked the video, hit that like button and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a great day.